All right, so in the early republic, the period from 1789 to 1815 that we just finished at the end of last week, political divisions were between the Federalists and the Republicans. The Federalists of George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, and John Adams, who favored a strong central government and believed that the future of Republican government and the future of self-government and the preservation of natural rights depended on a central government that could provide order and stability to the society, and warned against factionalism. And in the case of Adams, there was also, and in the case of Hamilton, there was an opposition to slavery, right, within some of the Federalist circles. Certainly, though, opposition to slavery was not in the platform of the Federalists, so to speak. And of course, that was because the issue of slavery was shelved, was put aside because it was considered too controversial, right? And and of course, the hope of many of the Federalists and also a good deal of the Republicans was that slavery would naturally die out, right? Okay. And then, of course, the Jeffersonian Republicans, on the other hand, right, they favored state rights over federal government. They wanted the states to really be sovereign and to be able to make their own decisions without much interference from a central government, okay? And Jefferson's ideal, of course, was to expand the country westward, to provide land for white settlers in the West so that you would build up a republic of independent, self-sufficient farmers, you know, people who were prosperous but not fantastically wealthy, who would defend their own land, be able to vote, and serve in government if necessary, but not have political careers, so to speak. They would have they would rely on their own self-sufficiency for survival, right? And of course, this vision for the country is always looking westward and is looking to expand and annex territory as it moves west. Of course, it also involves the movement of Indian peoples and their assimilation into the United States culture and society, or their just simply removal. Okay, and of course, this worldview is carried forward by Madison, and then ultimately by the fifth president of the United States, James Monroe, who comes into office in 1817 after he's elected in a landslide in 1816, okay? And he really wants to provide a period of healing, what he calls a period of good feelings within the country to unite Americans and to put an end to this factionalism between the Republicans and the Federalists that dominated the early republic, okay? What we're going to see under Monroe in the early 1820s is that the central questions of politics shift. Right now, there's still the issue of federal power versus state power. It doesn't go away, but the focal point gradually and then with a lot of intensity becomes the issue of slavery, whether slavery will be allowed to expand or whether slavery will be contained in hopes of its dying out. Now, by 1820, nobody is thinking that slavery is going to die out. It's expanding rapidly thanks to this booming cotton business in the territories gained by the Creek Nation, which we talked about yesterday. So slavery is not going away. And now this question of westward expansion, so central to Jefferson's Republican ideology, is also tied very strongly to the issue of slavery, because so many of these white settlers who are looking to move west want to take slaves with them, all right? And they want to establish profit generating plantations with cotton, by producing cotton, okay? So gradually, this becomes the central issue, okay? And Monroe would like to have avoided the emergence of a new and really more virulent, even, factionalism starting in the 1820s. And And he really, sincerely wanted there to be a kind of a reconciliation between Federalists and Republicans. And he was good at conciliation. He wanted to foster what he called these good feelings and to foster national unity, right? He said the American people were one great family with a common interest. And so the discord does not belong in our system, right? But he really didn't take the steps necessary to build unity. First of all, the Federalist Party was defunct. It was absolutely almost completely defeated. So there really wasn't any sort of concession he had to make to the Federalists when he was promoting good feelings, right? They were already defeated. And, rather than incorporating Federalists into his administration, he really continues to exclude them. And so Monroe's presidency is going to be a continuation of a Republican-dominated presidency. Now, he does favor this idea of states' rights over federal government, but really, by the 1820s, there's nobody there to challenge it. Now, starting in 1819 is when you really start to see the extent to which the slavery issue has becoming very rapidly, overtly, the central dividing political issue in the United States, okay? And it has to do with Alabama's admittance to the United States in 1819 as a slave state. And this meant, with Alabama coming into the Union in 1819, there was an equal number of slave states and an equal number of free states where slavery was abolished or not allowed. There was 11 of each. So they had equality within the Senate. Of course, many of the more populated states, with, say, the exclusion of Virginia, or free states, so New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. So they have a little bit, maybe an advantage there in the House of Representatives, but there's an equality between the free states and the slave states in the Senate, okay? And very quickly the problem becomes, now Missouri Territory, in what was, of course, part of the Louisiana Territory, west of the Mississippi River, the Missouri Territory would like to become a state, right? And the question is whether it's going to be a free state or a slave state, okay? And the senator from New York, James Talmadge, he proposes an amendment to the bill admitting Missouri into the Union, but it's going to be Missouri coming into the Union as a free state, okay? And the amendments would say that there's no slaves allowed to be moved into Missouri, and that all those slaves who've been born in Missouri Territory after the admission to the Union would be freed at age 25. Now, the bill is rejected because you had a few northern senators that sided with the southern states, right? They did not want to limit slavery in Missouri, okay? Well, the result then becomes, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to maintain the parity, the equality between the free states and the slave states in the Senate? So what is arrived at is something called the Missouri Compromise, okay, the Missouri Compromise. And so Massachusetts agrees to cede control over the kind of large but sparsely populated region of the District of Maine, which has been part of Massachusetts since the colonial period, okay? And the result is that Maine will enter the state as into the Union as a free state, and Missouri will enter the Union as a slave state, okay? As part of the compromise, slavery will be banned in all of the Louisiana Territory, so long as it remains territory, and it will be banned to the north and west of the new state of Missouri, the 3630 line. Okay, well, the Missouri Compromise kind of quells and quiets the situation for a little bit of time. Okay, but what it also does is it alerts many Southerners, and especially those people that are eager to move into the West and populate it with their slaves and use their slaves to become rich. They are realizing that there's a growing opposition to them within the North that would like to contain slavery as much as possible. And so they're going to start organizing and identifying their interests in terms of promoting and expanding slavery as the United States moves westward.